Hi guys, thanks for tuning in. My name is Kelly if you're new here. If you are not, then welcome back. Today I wanted to talk to y'all about my favorite and most influential books of all time. This is, of course, completely subjective, and these are just like books that I have loved, that I read growing up or that I read recently. Most of them I read growing up, that either impacted the type of reader that I am or just are books that I like continue to go back to. What we're gonna start off with is my honorable mentions because I'm not gonna spend very much time on them, so I just want to kind of get through them. So I have 4 honorable mentions, and 2 of them are like, duh, of course she's gonna say this, because I grew up in the early 2000s and 2010s, so these were very popular. 2 of them were very popular, starting with Harry Potter, which is like, duh, of course. This is my copy of Harry Potter that I got for Christmas one year in a box set of the first 6. When I started reading them, I was too young to read them. My mom read them to me and my little brother. So, yeah, Harry Potter has been a huge part of my life for a very long time. The second one that was super popular back in the day, a little bit later than Harry Potter, was Percy Jackson. Obviously, we all know the new TV show that is out on Disney Plus, coming out on Disney Plus weekly. And yeah, I read those books when they were coming out. I was obsessed with Greek mythology, as I think many of us were at the time. My other 2 honorable mentions are actually books that I've read in the last year that I gave 5 stars, and I just know that they're going to change my trajectory as a reader. So first off is My Dark Vanessa, which, like, if you've watched any of my other videos, you're probably aware of how much I loved this book. It was so good, but also so dark and sad, but it was beautifully written, and I will probably never read it again, or at least not for a very long time, but I loved it. And then my last honorable mention is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which was an immediate 5-star. I read it a couple weeks ago. I loved it so much. And I think it's best to go into that one completely blind and not really know what's happening, because I did, and it made it that much more gripping for me, and it was just so good. And I love Andy Weir's books. So, honorable mentions aside, let's get into my favorite books of all time. These are in no particular order, but I have kind of grouped them a little bit to ones that I associate with each other, if that makes sense. So, because I was just saying how much I loved Project Hail Mary, we're going to start with The Martian, which is also by Andy Weir. Come on. The Martian is about a man named Mark Watney who is on a mission to Mars through NASA with some other astronauts, and one day while they're there, there's a big storm that comes rolling in. They have a lot of I don't know if they call them like dust storms, sandstorms, dust storms. They call them dust storms. And they have to evacuate because of the power of the wind, and they leave Mark behind because they think he's dead. And I'm not going to ruin how he's not actually dead, but he's not actually dead, and there was no way that the crew could have possibly known. So they had left him behind, and he has to figure out how to survive until NASA can come get him, and also how to communicate with NASA. You may have seen the movie with Matt Damon and Sebastian Stan and Kate Mara, and the guy from Ant-Man, and Donald Glover, my birthday buddy, and oh god, I don't even know. It is a star-studded cast. It is so good. I love the movie. I love the book. I would recommend to everybody. It is a super accessible, easy to read sci-fi, so it's not like a super intense world building dystopian sci-fi. It's a more realistic type of sci-fi, and the way that Andy Weir explains the science is super accessible and easy to understand, in my opinion at least. So I think it's like a good entry into sci-fi for those of us who haven't really read much sci-fi in their lives. And I think about it daily, almost, to be honest. So, kind of related, the next book, and I am putting series in as one book because I'm not going to talk about every single one on its own. But next is Maximum Ride, the series by James Patterson. I have not read these in so long. I don't remember what happens at all. Well, that's not entirely true because I saw a TikTok about it, but I barely remember what happens. However, they are about this girl, Maximum Ride, teenager, and she has like a little flock. And I say flock as in birds because they have wings, because they were experimented on. So they are a flock. They run away, I believe, from the scientists. It's like that's the conflict for at least the first one. I know that the first 3 books are really good, and then it kind of goes. So don't know if there was like a different ghostwriter or something helping James Patterson with that, because I know he does that sometimes. Don't care. The first 3, top tier. They were like my first sci-fi probably, and I read them so much. But yeah, amazing. I loved Maximum Ride. I think about Maximum Ride all the time too. So next, we're going to talk about the Selection series. Now, I don't know where my first book is. So this is the 3rd book in the original trilogy. It's called The One. And there is the OG trilogy, and then there is a companion duology. Yes, there's a companion duology about the next generation, but basically what the Selection is about, it's a dystopian YA, so all the rage back in the day, right? It is basically like The Bachelor for the prince of this dystopian society, and there's a caste system because of course there is, and our main character is in one of the lower castes, but not the lowest castes. She's like caste 4 or 5, I think, and she is actually in love with this other guy, so it's also a love triangle. But the guy she's in love with and her mother kind of pressure her into applying for the Selection, and nobody knows that these two are together, by the way. Yeah, so 35 girls enter the Selection, and reading off the cover, 35 girls entered the Selection, only one can win. So dramatic. But I loved this series growing up. I think it was one of my first, like, cheesy, stupid romance, which, don't get me wrong, it's dystopian, so, like, there's that conflict, and there are, like, rebels trying to take over, and some political stuff, and I enjoy that part of it as well, but it is The Bachelor. It's a dystopian YA bachelor in a book, and I ate that up. I loved them. They will forever be a book that I think about. I reread them. They're like a comfort reread for me I don't know if you guys have this experience, but sometimes you just need to reread something that you've already read to get you out of a reading slump or get you out of like a mental health slump or whatever. I have that happen to me not pretty often, but a couple times a year probably, and many of these books are on my list of books to help me get out of a reading slump, because I find that reading something I know or reading fan fiction of something I know are the easiest ways to get me out of a reading slump. So the Selection is one that I turn to a lot because it's also just like no brain needed, really. It's a cute, silly romance. I love that about it. Next on my cute, silly romance track, because these are also certainly cute, silly romances, and that's why we love them, is the Sarah Dessen universe. And yes, I am just going to put the whole universe in here, but the book that I'm using to represent it is one of my favorites, Along for the Ride, which was made into a Netflix movie not that long ago that I actually watched a couple days ago when I couldn't sleep. I was up until 7 a.m. Anyway, yeah, so Along for the Ride is about this teenager. She just graduated high school. And her parents are divorced, and it was kind of a messy divorce, so she goes to spend the summer with her dad in this beach town named Colby, and Colby is where a lot of these books take place in the Sarah Dessen universe. They're all about teenagers falling in love and finding themselves. And I think that's part of why I like them more than I liked others, is it's not just romance, it's also personal growth on both sides in some ways. Definitely in this one on both sides. And there's always something up with the main character. In this one, it's her parents' divorce that kind of screwed her up. In other ones, it's other things. Some of them are more intense than others. All of her books are so good, and I loved reading them when I was a kid. Not a kid. I was a teenager when I was reading these. And they were just, I don't know, I just loved them. I loved them. I don't have to have a good reason. I loved them. They were cute and fun, and I liked them, and they were perfect summer books. Perfect. Next on my list is the universe, because it's another one of those interconnected standalone universes, and more romance. All of the rest of these are all romance. It was 1 sci-fi, 2 sci-fi, and then romance. I have a trend. Anyway, the next group of books is the Lynn Kurland universe. So the one that's my favorite is this one, When I Fall in Love. It is about Nicholas and Jennifer. So how to explain the Lynn Kurland universe? It's paranormal romance. I was gonna say what it says. Yeah, the book side of this one specifically says paranormal romance. Some of them say historical, and some of them are fully historical, and some of them are like fully in the future or barely time travel. But this whole universe is based on there's time travel locations throughout the UK. I believe they take place mostly in England, Scotland, and France. I don't know why my favorite ones are the Scotland ones. I'm Scottish, except for this one. Anywho, there's a lot of different like siblings from the same families that time travel on purpose or by accident. Most of them are by accident. There's a couple of ghosts scattered throughout. There are some, like I said, that are fully historical that kind of give you context to some of the couples that were like already established to us, and then Lynn Kurland I think went back and wrote their stories. I love the series. I have so many of them. Yeah, they fully are like all the same formula with slight variations, and I don't care. I don't. I love reading them. They always make me feel good, and they are definitely ones that I will pick up if I'm like needing a comfort read as well. All of these are comfort reads. Really, this video should just be titled Books I Read When I Need Comfort. All of my comfort reads ever. This isn't even all of my comfort reads ever. But yeah, so that was my first foray into paranormal romance, and I really want to get more into paranormal romance because I really like it, specifically time traveling and ghosts. Not a big werewolf girl. I can do vampires. I used to be a huge angel girl. Which kind of brings me to my next series, and that is the only series that I brought. It's a trilogy. I got all 3 of them down. I've talked about this author before on this channel because I'm like obsessed with them, and that is Mick Cabot. This is her Abandoned trilogy. I'm hoping that it's focusing. Yeah, so the Abandoned trilogy is kind of a Hades Persephone retelling, except it references Hades and Persephone also, so it's not really a retelling so much as an inspired by. The Abandoned trilogy is about this girl named Pierce, and she has a near-death experience. She dies and comes back. So she like drowns in a pool and then is brought back to life at the hospital. And after she is brought back to life at the hospital, she has a series of like weird things happening to her, and this guy who she like met in the underworld keeps coming and like seems like he's stalking her, but in his head he's trying to help her and whatever. So it's not really enemies to lovers at all, but there is a little while in the first book that you're like, they don't like each other very much, which is not really that true. But anyway, his name is John. So John runs the underworld, but only one specific underworld. And I don't know how to explain to you how that works. Just read the books if you want to understand how the underworld afterlife system works in here. But basically, Pierce is being hunted down by the Furies because John is in love with her and they want to hurt him. I don't actually know why. I don't remember. That part has never mattered to me much. I like the banter in it. I like their relationship. I think it's cute. They are just great books. Comfort books. Again, just books that I will reread all the time. So, I love those. The next ones are by the same author. And that is the Mediator series, which is more paranormal romance. So this is a series, it's 6 books. It is also by Meg Cabot. There is like a book that she wrote many years later about them many years later. I forget how many years later. That I don't have my physical copies down here because technically my physical copies are actually my sister's physical copies. We shared a lot of books growing up and I don't want to go upstairs and get them from her, so I don't have them. I wasn't going to carry 6 books down here for that anyway. The Mediator is about a girl named Suze whose dad died when she was little, and she can talk to ghosts, hence the name of the series, The Mediator, because that's what a mediator does. They mediate. And she grows up in NYC and then moves to California because her mom meets a guy whose name I'm forgetting at the moment. And said guy lives in Carmel Hills. And so she has to go and she transferred schools and she has to live with like this guy and his 3 sons. And you would think, oh, is she going to fall for her stepbrother? No. Actually, the sibling relationship that develops between her and some of her stepbrothers is really, really sweet. And I actually really like that part of the series. And she finds out that their house is haunted by this ghost named Jesse. And as soon as he realizes that she can see him, they strike up a bit of a friendship. He doesn't really have any interest in moving on. It is a little bit like she kind of doesn't like him at first. She's very wary of ghosts, but again, not really enemies to lovers. More like a realistic strangers to lovers. Well, to friends, to lovers. But yeah, so she does. She falls in love with the ghost. Sorry, spoiler. There's another guy who's a mediator, and it's just this lovely little series. I love Suze in it. Like, she's kind of awful. She's like 16, 17. She's kind of awful. The last series on the list is the Princess Diaries series, also by Meg Cabot. So clearly I'm a Meg Cabot stan, and I love her writing. We all know and love the story from the movies, right? Mia Thermopolis is thrown into the world of being a princess when her grandmother comes and tells her that she is in fact a princess because her dead dad was a prince and her mom just never told her. However, the books are completely different. In the movies, right, Mia's dad is dead. That's like a huge plot point, is that her dad is dead. And then in the second movie, she ends up with another guy. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the second movie because I'm in love with Chris Pine. Always have been, always will be. That movie introduced me to him. I am forever grateful to that. Also, Julie Andrews and Anne Hathaway. Like, really, really great casting, and really wonderful movies. However, that is not what the books are. The Princess Diaries book series is about Mia Thermopolis, who is, I think she's like 16 or 17 when the series starts, maybe 15. I know she's 15 in the movies. And she, surprise, is a princess. Her dad is alive. He's alive. She just didn't know he was a prince. So, still the shock, but her dad being alive makes it completely different. And she has the same love interest, her best friend's brother. As much as I love the movies, I kind of don't even consider them the same story as the books. Now, here's the thing about these books. Yes, they are on this list. Yes, I think about them all the time. No, I have never read them all the way through in order because I was a library kid, right? We weren't going to buy all these books. I read a lot. I read even more as a kid. And so did my sister. And honestly, everybody in my family. So we weren't going to be buying. There's 6 people in my family. We weren't going to be going and buying all of these books. Nobody has the money for that. And a lot of books you only read once. So what's the point? So I would go to the library and I would find a Princess Diaries book. Now, I don't think I ever knew which one in the series I was reading. Ever. Except for when I read the first one, which I did read the first one first. I have very distinct yet hazy memories of going to the library. I remember which shelf they were on, even though the library has now been rearranged and the teen section is no longer where it was when I was in middle school, which is when I was reading these. And sometimes I would just sit in the aisle and read until I was told to go home. I think about the books a lot though, especially when I rewatch the movies, which I do all the time. Obviously, those are the books that have impacted me the most or that I've loved the most throughout my life, with a few honorable mentions. Let me know down in the comments what some of your favorite or most influential books are. Are you like me and all of your books are cheesy romance? Or do you have books that are more impactful in general? And I cannot explain the impact that a lot of these books have had on me because I don't actually know. Because I was so young when I read them that I barely remember a time of my life before them. They have just like always been there for me, for a lot of them. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day wherever you are. Give the video a like if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see my upcoming reading vlogs, which are going to include but are not limited to Intro to Sci-Fi, which is me learning sci-fi along with you. Don't worry. My friends pick what I read, etc., etc. Tell me what you want to see if you have any ideas. Thanks for hanging out with me. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day. And that's it. Okay, love you. Bye.